Hi, I'm John Mayfield. Thanks for joining me at Global Real Estate School. I'm going to share with you 11 very important sections that you will see on the real estate examination, but more importantly, how to help you pass the real estate exam on the very first attempt. So let's get right into some of these items that you're going to run into for the real estate examination. And the first one is property ownership. Now, I'm actually have my information right here in front of me. We're going to go over to our interactive whiteboard. And the first area, as I mentioned, is called property ownership. So what are they going to ask you regarding property ownership? Well, there's several key areas in this specific section that you will need to know. And the first one that they mention here is called real property versus personal property. Here's the key thing you need to remember, and don't make these too challenging. Real property is it's fixed to the land, okay? You cannot move it. Personal property is anything that's movable. We have lots of information that can kind of help you dive a little bit deeper, but as you're reading these exam questions, ask yourself the question, can this be moved or is it non-movable? Good example that sometimes confuse people would be curtain rods. Curtain rods are attached to the property in such a way that you cannot move them, right? And so we call that a fixture. And there's lots of definitions you need to know, but just understand the difference between real and personal property. That's going to be one section underneath property ownership. The second area we need to look at or understand is what we call legal descriptions. And by the way, we've got some great videos on my website where we really dive into all of these topics. But regarding legal descriptions, I want you to remember that there are three different types of legal descriptions, okay? First, we have what is called the government rectangular survey system. And I'm going to abbreviate, but government rectangular survey system. And this is a system that was created many years ago by the U.S. government, and it entails things such as townships and sections and ranges and meridian lines and all of these other various things that you need to know. Again, I have some great videos if you want to dive a little deeper into that. But the second type of legal description you need to know, and the one I've heard that is on the exam a lot, is called metes and bounds. Let me go over and write that down for you. It's called a metes and bounds. Now, here's the question that you probably will see on the examination. So let's just move this up. And this is the one item you need to know about the metes and bounds legal description. It always, make a good note of that, it always begins and it ends at what we call the POB, the point of beginning, okay? So I'm a creative speller. If you ever see me misspell something, I'm wondering if there's two N's there, but don't worry about that. Just the point of beginning. Always has to begin and end there. Now, it's ideal for irregular shaped parcels of property. Why? Because it could go out this way a certain number of feet, go down here a certain number of feet, come back here. You could go over here, over to the old creek bed, and then boom, right back up to the point of beginning. So metes and bounds always begins and ends at a point of beginning. Now, the other type of question you might see regarding that is that it's ideal for irregular shaped parcels of properties. So just read through the question, and here's what I really want you to know to pass the real estate exam. If you read those exam questions 2 or 3 times, by the third time, it's just going to be like, oh, I get it. I know what they want me to answer now. These questions can seem very, very difficult, but sometimes we draw too much into them, and I don't want you to do that. you read through a question, they give you a lot of junk and information in there, and you're picking up the fact that, well, it started here and it came back and it ended at that same spot. That must be a meets and bounds legal description. So again, lots of legal description information on other videos on our channel here. Just be sure and search for those on our YouTube channel, which is Global Real Estate School. I'll put that back up so you can see that here again. Now, the third type of legal description is called a meets and bounds a lot. We just talked about the meets and bounds. It's called a lot and block. It's normally what you would find in subdivisions and local towns, where it may be Lot 5, Block H, Town of Crawley, something like that. The Town of Crawley was a part of a legal description, the many homes I sold in the Park Hills, Flat River area. So lot and block, normally you have a subdivision plats recorded, you have meets and bounds, it always begins and ends at the what? Good job, point of beginning, POB. And it's ideal for irregular shaped parcels of property. And then we have that government rectangular survey system, which has 36 sections in a township. There are 640 acres in a section, and section number 1 is in the northeast corner, and the proceeds from section number 16 actually went to pay for the school. Well, all of that you can find right on our website or right on our YouTube channel. You can probably find it on my website too. We have some flashcards you could download, but those are the 3 types of characteristics and land descriptions you need to know for the exam. There might be a couple of other items in there, but encumbrances, they're going to talk about liens and easements. You need to know what an easement in gross is versus an easement appurtenant. An easement appurtenant is where I might give you an easement to be able to use a driveway to go across my property. If we have that type of an arrangement and I own the property and that driveway is going across my property and you have an easement, I am the servient estate and you are the dominant estate. And you can kind of remember that because you're actually dominating the situation. You're using the road and it's on my land, so I'm doing what? I'm serving you, servient estate, and you're the dominant. But lots of ways you can terminate and create an easement, and they're really kind of no-brainers. I mean, when you think about how can you terminate an easement? Well, when the easement no longer exists, right? A merger of the 2 properties. So just read the questions carefully, think through them, you're going to do just fine. Another question you might see in this section is regarding liens, and I want you to remember real estate taxes always take top priority, okay? Even over a federal IRS lien. So any back taxes on the real estate get paid first. Mechanic liens, you could see some questions on that. They can only be filed on the property where the work was located. And the other item you need to know about a mechanic's lien is the fact that not only people who provided work can file a mechanic's liens, but those people who provided goods or services can also file mechanic liens, and they have to be placed on that property normally within a certain length of time for that state. So kind of remember that. You're also going to see under that specific section a lot of ownership questions. Tenancy by the entirety, husband-wife. Tenancy in common versus joint tenancy. Remember the joint tenancy. There are 4 unities. We remember the 4 unities by the acronym PITT, P-I-T-T, and P-I-T-T, this is the 4 unities required for joint tenancy. And remember, joint tenancy is what? It's 2 or more owners. It's co-ownership. And so you have to take possession, interest at the same time, and you're all on the same title. So for joint tenancy to happen, all of that has to take place at the same time. You see an exam question and they say John owned 1/3 and Mary owned 2/3. Were they joint, and they're not married, were they joint tenants or tenants in common? Well, look at this. They did not take the same interest, right? 1/3 and 2/3. So in this case, John and Mary would have to be tenants in common if they are not married. So there's lots of ways that you can just pick up on these and figure out what the correct answer is. Don't try to stress out. You can do this by the process of elimination and really going through the material that you've been provided through your school. Now, at Global Real Estate School, we do provide lots of video for our students. We have flashcards. I have a great program called My Real Estate Exam Coach with short, condensed videos over these same topics that I'm going through the outline, plus many more. But you can use this on your mobile phone and really prepare and pass that exam on the first attempt, because that's what we want you to do. So that's section 1. Do we want to go over section 2 now, or do we want to wait and go over it in another video? I think we ought to go over it now, and I'm going to break this up because, again, I have 11 topics and tips to help you pass the exam. So let's do one more section on this video, and then I'll pick up and do some more recordings to have you watch. So if you subscribe, you'll be able to get notified when we do these other videos for that. How about that? So here's the next section you need to know. We talked about property ownership, types of ownership, encumbrances and liens. Remember, an encumbrance is anything that what? I heard a lady out there, her name was Mary, and Mary said, anything that affects the title to the real estate, John. Good job, Mary. Probably others heard that as well, too. But an encumbrance is anything that affects the title to the real estate. And remember that an encumbrance can be a good thing or a bad thing. An easement might be a good thing for you if you're selling your property. But a tax lien and real estate taxes always take top priority. That would be a negative issue for an encumbrance. Judgments, mechanic liens, those are all encumbrances. So just remember that's part of this first section. Now, the second section I want to go through with you is land use control and regulations. Kind of a fun section. You own your real estate. Nobody can tell you what to do with it except for Uncle Pete. P-E-T-E. We have police power. It's the government's right to put building codes and zoning on your property. We have eminent domain. It's the government's right to take your property through what is called condemnation, where they condemn the property, and it always, remember, has to be for the good of the public, just compensation to the owner, and you also need due process of law. Then we have taxation, the government's right to tax your property, and escheat, E-S-C-H-E-A-T. That's when you die without a will and without heirs. This is why you need to know the definitions, because there's a question I've seen that says, Bob such and such died intestate and had no will. What happens to his property? Well, you need to know what intestate means, don't you? He died without a will. And if he died without a will and without heirs, the property then escheats to the government. We have flashcards on my website. I know you're probably thinking, hey, John, you're trying to sell a lot of stuff. Well, I'm trying to make a living, and I'd love for you to pass the test on your first time. And some of you may just need our digital flashcards that you can put on your phone, or maybe you want to sign up for My Real Estate Exam Coach. They're tools you can use in all 50 states, so check those out, okay? And then private controls, where we talk about deeds and homeownership regulations. All of those will be kind of involved in there. There's also a couple of items in there, definitions about abatement and mitigation. various types of hazards. They talk about wetlands and flood zones. All of those will be encompassed under that section, land use controls. And then I think also taxes and special assessments are under there as well. What I will tell you is this: special assessments carry the same weight as a tax lien. Okay, it is a tax. A lot of times you might have a special assessment for a swimming pool or sidewalks or curb and gutterings. Now, here's a question you might see, trying to give you all these questions that could come up. What if there was a special assessment and there are 4 lot owners and lot owner A, B, C are in the middle of the block, but then lot owner D is on the end and he has a sidewalk that goes down the front and along the side of his home? Who would pay the most special assessment? And the answer is lot owner D, because he has more benefit of the sidewalk along his property. So there is another question you're going to see on the exam about real estate taxes. It's ad valorem, or ad value, according to value. Understand that someone who owns a $50,000 home will pay less taxes versus someone who owns a $500,000 home. That is ad valorem, and that's according to value. Our taxes are placed on us according to the value of our property. Well, 2 big sections there. We covered a lot of ground, a lot of points. I'm going to record another video right after this for another time, and I'm going to actually link it to this one so you can watch that video right after this. So we've got another great video that's on its way next. I want to remind you that we have some great aids over at Global Real Estate School to help you pass the real estate exam. Check that out. It is globalrealestateschool.com. We have a wonderful podcast. I love doing the podcast. We've got a lot of great information on there. So we'd love for you to subscribe to our channel, check out our podcast, and watch the very next video where we're going to continue on with these 11 sections to help you pass the real estate exam. As always, thanks for watching. Go out and make it a great day.